Don't forget to subscribe and to hit the bell to get our latest notifications.
Good morning, everyone joining in. I am today happy to have with me in Switzerland René Weber, who is Managing Director at Vontobel Bank and Luxury-Analyst for 25 years now. Good morning, René.
Morning, Alexander.
He's joining in from Switzerland. He is in his home office close to Zürich. I am in my home office close to Vienna. And René, we should talk a little bit. You just presented yesterday a new report coming out from Vontobel Bank concerning the situation of the Swiss watch industry. Would you be so kind, René, and just inform our viewers what was the situation like before we entered the Corona crisis? Let's say end of 2019, and what's the situation now and how we are going to get out of it? What are your views?
Right, I think at the end of 2019, we were still quite good shape in the Swiss watch industry. We had watch exports being up by 3%. Even in January, we had a growth of 9%. That was even above our estimate for the full year. We had in our estimates plus 2% for 2020. Of course, we already had some negative signs in Hong Kong, for example, in 2019, but overall it was still a very good year. Now, since the situation really started, we had changed our assumption. It's quite obvious it will be a decline, and we expect the biggest decline which we ever have seen. It's minus 25%. We looked back in history, what was the worst we ever had, and it was really during the financial crisis where we had a decline of minus 22%, or even you can go back to 1975 where we had the quartz crisis, which was a decline of minus 15%. But the minus 25% is now an estimate which probably is still on the optimistic side, that we will see a decline which we never have seen before.
So, what do you then think, how will the industry recover? I think you can always go back and look to some figures, how the industry recovered in the past. How quick and how consequently will the industry, do you think, or do your analysts, your colleagues think the industry can recover?
Yeah, of course, it depends very much on the duration of the whole crisis. We see now China starting to open up, but you also can see what happened during that period. So we just had the numbers coming out of Hong Kong. The number of Chinese tourists in February in Hong Kong was minus 98%, so almost no Chinese was traveling there anymore. And the sales in watches in Hong Kong was in February minus 80%, so almost no business anymore. And the same happened, of course, in mainland China. On the other hand, we have now the first signs as the stores are opening up again in China. We just heard 2 days ago Nike, which opened 2 weeks ago, they already have some stores which are on the similar level as they had before the crisis. Obviously, we do not expect that to happen in the watch industry, that they will come so fast. But for the crisis itself, now it's also important what happened in Europe and what happened in the US. In our assumption, where we expect the second quarter to be the worst, with minus 40% decline, already includes the opening of stores here in Europe in May and probably in the US in June. If the duration is longer, then of course the decline could be even higher.
Do you think that the recovery is how long do you think that the recovery will last until we come back to normal figures as you were used to see them in your reports?
Yeah, I think it needs a lot of time to come back to the level what we had in 2019. But what we have seen in the last few crises, it's always the same, that the year afterwards we already come back to positive growth, and sometimes really huge growth rate. So if we go back financial crisis 2009, as I mentioned, was a minus 22%. The year afterwards was already a plus 22. We do not expect that we'll have a similar growth rate, but we clearly believe that we'll get the recovery in 2021. We have now in our estimates a plus 15%. So clearly, if the market really opens up again, the stores get open up again, and hopefully we will get a little bit of positive feel-good factor again, then I think 2021 will be a good year after that.
Can you just explain also to our viewers, the Swiss watch industry is very much developing in the sense of becoming a very luxurious industry. So the segment in the lower price is very much suffering, and the upper range or the luxury segment is less suffering. Can you explain this difference and where the developments go to?
Yes, I think it was quite interesting already in the last few years, and 2019 was a typical year. So overall, the Swiss export were up by 3%. But if you look to the categories, the high end, which a retail price of 6,000 francs and more, was up by plus 7%. On the other hand, the low end, where we talk about below 500 Swiss franc retail price, was down by 14%. That clearly shows the impact from the smartwatch, but it also shows now that the high end already making up 70% of the total Swiss watch industry, whereas the low end is just a small piece. It's just 4%. If we include the mid end, which goes up to 1,500 Swiss franc, then we talk just 10% of total Swiss watch exports. Therefore, the majority of the Swiss watch industry is clearly in the high end, which was still doing well. Of course, they will be impacted as well. I think an important point, and probably you can tell me that as well, I have never seen closure of a whole production. So now Rolex, Patek, Audemars, they are closed down their production. Yeah. Have you seen that in your history? You are as long as I am there.
No, I've not seen this before. And it's really it's frightening, and it never happened before, because ever someone would have estimated we would run in such a situation. The only thing I know is that partial shutdown they always have in summer, when everybody goes on holidays. They shut down for a period mid-July, mid-August, but still they work. People are in the factories. They do some work in the background, but a complete shutdown I've never seen before. No. And if you would have asked me last year, I would have said, "Come on, what kind of drugs did you take, or what did you drink yesterday? Too much red wine? I don't know." No, I would have never estimated it. No, by no means.
I think what usually I've seen in this crisis is always a short time work, and we see a lot of companies doing that here in Switzerland. It's a very good measure they can do, that's helpful from the government side. Swatch Group also went, I think now roughly for 70% of their employees to short time work, but to close down the whole production, that's really something which is once in a lifetime.
You are closer to those who are in the delivery chain or in the supply chain. How quick, if everybody goes back to business, how quick do you estimate is everything running again, everything being supplied, so that watches, if a screw or a little, just a little piece is missing in a watch, a piece that maybe only worth some cents or some centime or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't work. How quick is the supply chain back on business? What do you estimate?
I think they are rather quick, and you have to see there is a big difference, let's say 10 years today compared to 10 years back. 10 years back, there were much more of the supply chain being outside of the companies, and we have seen several acquisitions. So they have the case producers, the hand producers, dial producers are now part of the different groups, and therefore they can react rather fast. I also believe that the other players which are important as a supplier, they also are back in a rather short period of time. I just had a call yesterday with a company who has some supplies coming out of China. It's not 100% Swiss made. Some pieces are still coming out from other regions. And they just mentioned that they already get back now some pieces out of China, and therefore supply chain, they just opened 2 weeks ago, is already fulfilled in that regard from the China side.
But on the high-end segment where they produce Swiss made 100%, you think they are ready to go as soon as they can?
Yes, I think
Okay.
there is still now a lot of inventory in the market because it's zero sales almost. You have some online sales going on, but majority of the stores, yes, exactly, majority of the stores are rather small or are rather closed.
Let me ask you something. About the bubble. There is a big bubble with Rolex. There's a big bubble with Patek Philippe. Some bubbles also with some other brands. How do you estimate? Will this situation continue after we went through this whole thing here? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the well-known brands and also watches from Rolex, Patek and Audemars, I think will continue to be there, that you have a waiting list. But the big difference will be, and I think that's not just a disadvantage, that the waiting list, which was probably sometimes 5 years, that clearly will come down. And therefore probably also the extreme premium you have to pay in the market for a Daytona or an Nautilus of 100% sometimes will also shrink. But I also believe that exactly these brands will make sure that these specific watches will continue to be on the waiting list. They will not just produce now thousands of them that everybody can get one. They want to make sure that the Daytona or the Nautilus or GMT Master, they will continue to be there as a rare product, and therefore a waiting list will continue to be there.
There will be a huge battle on the parallel market because there are so many watches for sale for double of price, and I think those people who did not act as a client but as a reseller when they bought their watch, they are now getting into a very hard competition, and I think this will bring the prices down also reasonably to, let's say, a level that is acceptable if you want to have one of those luxury watches. But how do you see that?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think that will be the effect now. And I also see it already now. I have a good friend of mine who was also on the waiting list. He started 2 years ago. He has his 60th birthday next week. He just got it now. Instead of 5 years, it's a 2-year waiting list. It was delivered will be delivered at his home next week.
Very good. That are good signs at least. Before concluding, there's a question that came in yesterday. I just want to read it out from my screen. Someone asks, ask him, so you, René, what's the difference between art and luxury, and how and which one will hold the value and pass this kind of current situation? I know it's a difficult question because you're not an art expert, you're an analyst, but do you dare to give an answer here?
Yeah, I'm clearly not an art expert at all. But I think when you look back, the art prices and luxury prices were in a quite parallel situation. It was always driven by the feel-good factor. If the economy was down, art prices were down, there was less demand for luxury products, and therefore I think it's quite comparable. I'm sure right now art prices are not much going up, and therefore they will feel the pain as well. But obviously it's two different areas, but I don't believe that there is much of a difference at the end in terms of price development.
I see. I honestly see it the same way. So there is watchmaking that is close to art, since it is rare, exclusive, and done in a very special way. And there's mass production that you can't compare to art and luxury. So you have to distinguish very precisely what we talk about. So can we conclude in that way that you are still optimistic for 2021 for a strong recovery, that you have to be very pessimistic for this year without knowing how the situation will outcome, because nobody knows when the lockups and everything will stop, and that you still believe that the industry is able to recover quickly and get back to let's say, a normal life again?
Yeah, I think quickly is probably the wrong word to use, but obviously I believe that we'll see a recovery starting in China and in Asia. I'm sure they are the first one who will see that. On the other hand, Europe will clearly suffer from less traveling. So I think it needs time till the Chinese are coming back to Europe. That probably will not happen in 2020. And Chinese as a whole make up 35-40% of the luxury market, probably even more in the watch market. And as long as the restriction in travel continues, that part will not be there. On the other hand, and I think that's the important one, I still believe that the demand from the Chinese middle class will continue. And therefore, if the economy will not be as bad as some people believe, I believe the government and the National Bank have reacted rather fast. I think 2020 should see a growth acceleration or a positive growth again. I think important also out of that crisis, that's an obvious one, that the digital shopping will probably accelerate. You know it as well. It's very small in terms of the watch business, so probably talk about 2-3%. I think with that situation, that's clearly something which will get more important.
There are jokes running around these days where the question is, what caused the digital revolution or digital development in your company? There was McKinsey, CTO, CEO, mobile squads, and then there's COVID-19. And that joke puts the focus on COVID-19. So it's COVID-19 who probably did the digital revolution in some of the companies. And I'm very curious to see what will happen next. Yeah, absolutely.
I think you heard as well the Patek story that's now open for internet sales. I don't think will be forever, but right now they are clearly helping the retailers with this measure.
We will see, and hopefully this is only the beginning of a recovery, and hopefully also that some of those digital things that are happening now will also be part of the watch industry in the future. I think it will be very, very helpful for them, and maybe also a change of their mindset is probably also not so bad, because many customers like to buy online and digital, and I think we should open the markets for them. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, I agree on that. But for some watches, I think it's still a very important point to see and to feel it in the store. As probably I'm old-fashioned, I still prefer to see the watch before I buy it.
A touch and feel is never bad. It's never bad. René Weber, thank you very much. Pessimistic and optimistic. Pessimistic for this year, optimistic for 2021. I hope your forecast will be as you said. My personal opinion is that we will recover in 2021 quickly. I don't believe that the interest in a luxury watch will decline. This is something so fantastic and so wonderful, a watch, that people will still try to invest in watches and wear watches. And end of the day, it's something you can always wear with you. It's an investment for life. It's something that is with you. And I don't think that such beautiful items will get out of fashion. I can't believe that.
Fully agree on that. I also like it.
Okay. René, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexander.
Stay healthy in Zurich. That's what
you too.
Yeah, I try. And let's meet soon back again, one-to-one, and not through Zoom as we did this morning. And yeah, all the best for today.
And we will take a glass of wine when we meet next time.
Promised, yeah, promised. At least one glass of wine. We'll start with one glass, okay?
Okay.
Bye-bye, René. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye, Alexander. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.